Season 2 of NASMARB rolls on into week number 2 with the qualifying and racing session at the Lightspeed 400 here at Hyper Speedway. Glad to have you back. Ricochet here with the second race of season number 2. All the hype, all the anticipation, kind of out the window now after the Spiral 360 last week. Now the drivers kind of get back into the normal momentum and way of doing things in the NASMARB season, and that brings us to another qualifying session here for the Lightspeed 400. This was the second ever race in the history of NASMARB and looks to provide some very interesting storylines once again here as we get going. Looking at the qualifying order, it is in reverse order of the way that we finished, or rather in the order of the way that we finished last week's race. So the teams that did not qualify, which you see there, the 99 of Nugget and the 13 of Winx, will be the first two to qualify all the way through down to the final three from last week's race. Piper in the 53, Lemondrizelle in the 3, and then last week's winner, first time in the career, a winner for Neptune, who will qualify last here for this session. One lap from the inside line, one lap from the outside line. The average is how we determine the starting grid for the race tomorrow. And we will begin with the 99, looking to run a little bit better in the second race with this new team. It is Coos Motorsports, Nugget in the 99 with Canada on the hood. 18th at this race a year ago, obviously did not finish or even attempt the race last week after qualifying dead last, unable to make the race. As you see the numbers here at this speedway, not great. So Nugget trying to turn things around here. The first lap from the inside line, spinning coming out of turn 3, coming across the line backwards. Didn't look terrible though. Time of a 3.65, spun there coming into turn 3. Looked like it may have been respectable. We'll see though. Here's Winx for Misfortune Racing, failing to qualify as well in the race last week. Finished 4th in this race a year ago, which includes the pole. Winx had a 3:00 average time, which actually was a tie. Won a race off to determine the pole. As you can see, pretty good numbers here, including 7 heat wins at Hyper Speedway. So hopefully that momentum will continue and Winx will have a little bit better performance this week as they come into turn 2. They spin as well, hard up against the wall and slowing as they come across the line backwards. And a much slower time there. Got out of control in between turns 1 and 2. And it really slowed right in the wall there towards the final backstretch of 4.41. Almost 0.8 of a second slower than Nugget. As we move on to the 17, this is Prime for Crimson Cruisers Racing with CCR on the hood. A disappointing finish as they finished dead last out of any of the drivers that made the race, but something that can be looked at as a positive is that Prime was the other car who averaged at 3:00 qualifying time and was beat out for the pole in this race a year ago. Didn't work out for Winx, but this looks like a pretty good lap here, keeping it straight and now bouncing off the walls. Kind of slowed it down there at the end. That's a disappointing finish to the lap. Only car so far to not turn around backwards, but here hard into the wall and then banging off almost like it was in a pinball machine there. A 4.14 settling into second out of the 3 to go so far for Prime. On to Spitzer for WAF Motorsports with WAF's bowling alley on the hood of the 25 as always. That classic look. Spitzer with one career heat win here, but just an average finish of 12.5. Finished 17th after qualifying 18th last week. So a disappointing start to the season. And the 25 will try to get it turned around here. From the inside line, hard into the wall immediately, keeping it straight and straightening out down the backstretch, turned it into a pretty solid lap. And the fastest lap so far, 3.63. After immediately turning it into the wall there, the 25 able to turn in what is a pretty solid lap so far. 3.63 to the top of the board at the moment for Spitzer. As we move forward to Confetti for Fortune Racing. Killian's on the hood there. Finished 16th last week, and the average finish here is just 19th. The reason for that, partly because of the fact that in this race a year ago, Confetti not only failed to qualify, but was dead last. 20th out of the 20 attempted qualifiers didn't make the race. Trying to have a little bit more success here, spinning around here, now coming across backwards across the line, and still a pretty solid 3.75 for Confetti, who has a best qualifying position here at Hyper Speedway of 8th. You saw it down there in the bottom left of your screen. We'll see how that stacks up. And here is Mozilla in the 66. Coos Motorsports with Coos as the main sponsor today. 7 heat wins here at Hyper Speedway, an average finish of 7th, including 1 fastest lap for the 66. So, although Mozilla was with a different team last season, still a chance to put forward, hopefully, some of the same results after a disappointing debut. Pretty fast here, straightening out along the backstretch and across the line with the fastest time so far. That looked pretty good. For Mozilla, who's a pretty good qualifier overall, that's a 3.53 and the fastest time so far today. As that will move us to Earl in the 33 for Red Pandas Racing, the first of the Red Pandas Racing cars to make an appearance after 2 made the final last week. The 33 driving for the Ukulele Emporium. Earl has been probably the most disappointing of the drivers for Red Pandas Racing, but this is a really, really solid team with a lot of high competitors, and Earl is among them. Spinning around here out of turn 2, hit the wall pretty hard, slowed it down, and it's a time of 3.77, so Earl settles into 5th. You can see there coming out of turn 2 is where the problem came. And now the 26. This is Streamer for OB Racing. Different look, though, on the hood there. Instead of the normal orange and black, it's the red, white, and blue of Marpsy on the hood today. For one of the best drivers in the history of the sport, average finish of 8th here at Hyper Speedway, including 1 finals appearance, 8 wins, 8 heat wins, I should say, and 2 fastest laps. Disappointing start to the season last week, but this is a pretty solid time. Didn't look like the fastest time as far as the moves there. Didn't have the fastest moment in the race, but a solid lap, the cleanest lap, and by far the fastest one so far, 3.26. A pretty big gap in between the 26 and the next closest, as Jack Tato will make an appearance. Jack Tato was a finalist here in this race a year ago, and you can see 10 heat wins and overall really good finish, 3.5. This is Jack Tato's best course, and looking for it after a 5th place qualifying last week. Looked really good, but only managed to win 1 heat and finish 12th in the race. As the 12th car gets out of turns 1 and 2, this is pretty good too. That looks even faster, and it is. To the top of the board again. This time it's Jack Tato with a 3.15 for the best qualifier in Hyper Speedway history, showing it so far. As we move forward to the 43 of Woodpecker for Red Pandas Racing, and Dave's Motors on the hood again. This is where Woodpecker won their only race last year. Averaged a finish of just 9th, though, and the reason for that is because they finished 17th in this race a year ago. But the last time we were at Hyper Speedway, it was all Woodpecker. Let's see what happens here. Solid lap out of 1 and 2. Hits the wall a little bit there down the backstretch. Going to slow it down a bit. But a pretty good time. 3.48. Moving into 3rd is Woodpecker from the inside line here. Yeah, looked pretty good there. And that will be certainly a solid time, with still quite a few to go as we move forward to Bloodstorm here, who was the runner-up in this race a year ago, and that was after Bloodstorm failed to qualify in the first ever NASMARB race, so this was the debut for Bloodstorm, and it looked pretty good. Average finish of 4.5, average qualifying, you see there, of 8th place for Bloodstorm for Misfortune Racing. Flare is on the hood of all these cars, and the 86 comes out of the gates pretty good. Looks like they keep it pretty strong. Hits the wall there a little bit. Got behind that back end. Got a little loose here, but still a very impressive 3.43 for Bloodstorm to move to 3rd, bumping Woodpecker from that top 3. And now the OB Racing teammate of Streamer. This is Electro in the 93, Texas Rollhouse on the hood. 5 heat wins here at Hyper Speedway after a 9th place finish, which was a 3rd place qualifying effort. A little disappointing in the results there from Electro a week ago. Finished 5th in this race a year ago, but did not qualify when we raced here last year in the last race, and very slow across the line. A big mistake from Electro. As you look coming out of turn 2 here, hit the wall hard and spun a few times around, and then just limped it back across the finish line for a pitiful 6.28 and Electro, who did not qualify the last time we were here at Hyperspeedway, in some pretty serious danger. That was almost 2 seconds slower than the next slowest car. As Murakami gets ready to go, hoping not to see another one of those. That was a very, very rough run there from Electro. After Electro's teammate, Streamer, ran what was the fastest time at the time of their run. They're second right now. Obviously very different as you have a look for Murakami's stats here at Hyperspeedway and on the season. And coming out of turns 1 and 2, another spin, slowing, but a lot faster still than Electro. And in fact, despite a pretty significant spin and coming across the line backwards, that's still a 3.74 for Murakami, which is 8th out of the 13. So in the middle of the pack here as we continue on to some of the faster cars from a week ago, including the pole sitter from last week. That was Steve, who was really impressive for Titan Motorsports in their debut with the Lucky Titan on the hood. There you can see the fastest lap was the best qualifier. They have a fastest lap here at this speedway as well, and 2 heat wins last week, as well as 2 heat wins here at this racetrack. And Steve gets a little out of sorts there down the backstretch, slows it down a bit, but still a pretty solid time. 3.56 will put Steve 6th from the inside line. As we move forward to Sal in the number 1 with the new Fortune Racing, moved over from the number 2, which is no longer in service. Won 5 heats, 6th place finish after a 10th place qualifying. Sal had a pretty good run there last week and a very impressive start, very positive start for this new team. Said he felt really good after week 1. Can't wait to see what they bring here speed-wise. Got a little sideways there coming in between turns 1 and 2. Straighten it out. And it's still a 3.44. Good enough for 4th for Sal from the inside line. That's a pretty good run there after Sal got a little out of sorts there in between turns 1 and 2. But still able to make it a pretty solid run. As we move forward to last year's champion for FFA Racing and Marbles for Autism, this is Oak, who had a disappointing, obviously, start to the season last year. Finished 5th in the opener last week. Finished 15th. Average finish of 15th here at Hyperspeedway, which includes a DNQ. That was 19th last time we ran this race. Remember, Oak didn't qualify for either of the first 2 races of the season. But here's the 48 back in the normal colors after the championship scheme last week. And a pretty solid time there. Kept it pretty clean. It will actually end up a little slower than I thought it was going to be, as Oak didn't have a ton of speed despite a very clean lap. That's a 3.68 to put the number 48 in 10th right now. As Quillow in the number 9 for MSWP. It's the Marble Sports Worldwide podcast. That's the sponsor. Marble Sports Worldwide is the team. Quillow has been an interesting case. Has at times seemed like they were among maybe the very best in this entire sport, and then at other times it's been a bit disappointing. So we'll see after a pretty good run last week what they can bring here qualifying-wise. And Quillow with another solid run, not the fastest, but that actually was pretty fast. That's a 3.4, a little faster than I thought it was. That's up to 3rd for Quillow. Very solid. Quillow is 2nd all-time in qualifying here at Hyperspeedway. And now we bring it into the final 3 from a week ago. The 53 of Piper in her debut in the Marble Yellow scheme once again. A 3rd place finish after qualifying 6th, winning 7 heats, making the finals in her debut for Red Pandas Racing. Now she's just one of the other drivers. Of course, this will be her first time coming to any of these courses, so always a learning curve. Let's see what the 53 can do from the inside line. Hanging up against the wall pretty fast. Oh, good speed, though. Got hard up into the wall in turn 2, but still able to put together a pretty solid 3.52. Into 7th goes Piper. Hit the wall hard there up in the top of turn 2, as you have a look at the number 3 of Lemondrizelle, who was the winner of this race a year ago, coming off a 2nd place finish last week in the season opener. Not donning the regular yellow, brown, and white colors, but instead driving for Nita today for Red Pandas Racing. And there are the numbers. They're pretty good here at Hyperspeedway, and they're pretty good just about all the way around. Lemondrizelle, one of the best drivers to ever do it, with the bright green on the hood today. And the 3 comes out with the starting gates. Pretty solid. Keeps it going. This is a good lap. Oh, man, Lemondrizelle, it's the fastest of the day. 3:12, just beating out Jack Tato by 3/100ths of a second. Fast enough to take the lead. And now Neptune, who was a winner a week ago, first career win for Neptune in the number 11 for ASE. Deficient Vehicles is the team. First career win for Neptune. 10 heat wins after a second place qualifying, a first place finish, a dominant effort from Neptune. And let's see if they can continue it here. Lemondrizelle's the time to beat from the inside line. A 3-1-2 looks pretty good. Now turning around backwards. It's going to slow down the 11. Not the worst time, but certainly not the best. A 4-1-0 all the way down into 17th for the 11. So a disappointing run there, as it looked like a pretty decent lap until turning around backwards there and losing all control of the car. There are the times from the inside line. Now remember, in NASMARB you get 2 laps, one from the inside, one from the outside. So we're about to go through that. And then those average times is how we will set the field for the main event. The seating, what groups we'll have, as well as the 2 cars that are going to fail to qualify, which if they were right now, that would be the 13 of Winx, who didn't qualify last week, and the 93 of Electro, who's in a lot of trouble. Pretty big, significant gap there between 19th and 20th. So here's the 99 again. Nugget is spinning and having problems, and now coming back across with the front of the car going forward. That was a 4.35 from the outside line to average out to a 4.00. There were only 4 cars that ran a time higher than that in the inside lap, as we move on to the 13 of Winx. Better time there, and Winx with a 3.54 to average it to a 3.98. That is awfully good from Winx. Obviously not the best laps overall, but that's a very impressive run. Winx trying to get in the show for the first time. Here's the 17. Hard into the wall, slows it down really slow. This is trouble for Prime. A 4.79. It's a 4.47, and to the bottom of the board goes Prime. And with a pretty significant gap there, that is trouble for the 17. Here's the 25 of Spitzer. Pretty good. A couple of hard contacts there with the wall. Didn't slow it down too much, though. Averaging out to a 3.59, and to the top of the board goes the 25. Here we go, as Confetti makes a pretty good run there until you saw out of turn 2 some problems. It's a 3.99 overall, though, and still locked into the show is Confetti, 3rd out of 5 so far. Here's Mozilla, and that looked like a pretty good lap there. Mozilla goes to the top of the board, equaling a 3.53 from the inside and doing it just a bit better, a 3.52 from that outside line. So Mozilla takes the lead over Spitzer for the pole position. Here's Earl. And Earl with a pretty solid run, banging off the walls a bit there at the end, but Earl with a 3.59 average. Just a tad bit behind Spitzer, so dropping into 3rd is the 33. And Nugget and Prime are still the 2 on the outs right now. Here's Streamer after a really good inside lap. This is a pretty solid outside lap as well. To the top of the board goes Streamer. An even faster line, that was a 3.16 from the outside, which so far is shown to be faster than the inside line here. 3.21 is the overall, as here comes Jack Tato, who had the 2nd fastest inside line. Banging up against the walls a little bit, so a little slower than they would have liked, a 3.44. Settling into 2nd place there is Jack Tato. As Streamer makes a pass there, was 3rd on the inside line, now already going to be ahead of Jack Tato as we move forward to Woodpecker, who got real sideways out of the turn. Slows it down just a bit, but still a pretty solid time, 3.51 into 3rd. Goes to 43. And there they are right now, the first 10. So Streamer, Jack Tato, Woodpecker, Mozilla, and Spitzer the top half. Earl, Winx, and Confetti are all locked in. Right now, Nugget with an average time of a even 4 seconds, and the 4.47 from Prime on the outs as we get to the bottom half here of the qualifiers. Here comes Bloodstorm. And Bloodstorm with a pretty solid run. That's a good lap from Bloodstorm, a 3.20 to average it to a 3.32. Into 3rd place goes the 86. That's a really good lap there from Bloodstorm. And here's the 93, Electro. Everybody looking at this one after a bad first lap. Can Electro pick it up? Good lap. Is it enough? The answer is probably not. It's a 334, but that still only averages to a 481. What it's going to do is lock Nugget into the show, so the 99 will race for the first time. And now Prime is right on the cut line as the 4 of Murakami goes through and will post a 6th place finishing time right there with a 355 average. Getting down to the nitty-gritty here, and we are dropping like flies how many cars are yet to go. Here's Steve, our qualifying pole sitter a week ago. Not going to have the speed quite for that, but that's another very solid time as Steve runs a 319 up into 4th place now. It's a good lap there from Steve, who really struggled last season. Obviously, the finish wasn't quite what he wanted last week, but the pole and now another very solid run. Here is Sal. Another good lap. Got a little slow there coming out of the second turn, but Sal able to average a 344. That's good enough for 5th. A very equal time there for Sal. 343 from the outside, 344 from the inside. Here is the defending champ. Oku had a pretty slow lap first time, slows here toward the end of the course, and that is just a 376, so average it to a 372. That is 11th out of the 16 now to have completed both their laps. As we get forward to Quillow in the 9. Quillow gets a little sideways, hits the wall hard, slows it down, but not enough to cause any problems other than the fact that that average time is going to go down, a 362 average. Quillow's going to qualify somewhere in the middle of the pack there as they're 11th currently with 3 more to go. Here is Piper. He ran a 352 from the inside line. Outside line looks pretty solid as well. And Piper will settle into 6th with an average of 3.5. Pretty good, nothing crazy, but that is going to be potentially a second straight season second straight race as a top seed, as Lemondrizelle makes a big spin, comes out of it okay, but drops all the way to 5th after a 373. Watch this. Spun around a full 360. It's a 343. Drizel is into 5th, and that's going to pretty much clinch the top seed for Streamer. Here comes Neptune, slow again. Is it enough? The answer is yes. Actually, it wasn't that bad. A 358. After that hard hit for Neptune will average out to 384. That's a 15th place. They are in the show, though, as you see the final qualifying stats there. Streamer, Jack Tato, and Bloodstorm, the top 3. With Steve and Lemondrizelle finishing out the top 5, then Sal, Piper, and Woodpecker, Mozilla, and Murakami the top 10. Bottom half there are Spitzer, Earl, Quillow, Oak, Neptune, Winks, and Nugget, who will both race for the first time, as well as Confetti. Meanwhile, it's Prime in the 17, who was tied for the best qualifying in this race a year ago, unable to qualify after a really bad outside line. It's the opposite for Electro in the 93. After really struggling, the slowest lap overall was that 628 from the inside line. They couldn't do enough on the outside. Both of those cars failed to qualify. The fastest laps and some bonus points going to go Lemondrizelle, the fastest lap from the inside line. Streamer has the fastest outside line lap, and the fastest average lap, which is the pole position. 3 extra bonus points there for Streamer to pick up some points before we get going in race number 2. So the groups, as you can see them on the screen, just about ready to go. They'll make some adjustments and then get ready for tomorrow's race. Group 1 is Streamer, Mozilla, and Nugget. Jack Tato, Murakami, and Confetti make up Group 2. Bloodstorm, Woodpecker, and Wink. So a couple of the Misfortune Racing's cars there in Group 3, as well as the 43 of Woodpecker. Group 4 is Steve, Neptune, and Earl. Lemondrizelle, Spitzer, and Oak will be in Group 5. That's a tough one over there. And then Sal, Piper, and Quillow, another pretty solid group in Group 6. So these cars all ready to go. They will make those adjustments as needed and get ready for the main event tomorrow. But until then, you've been watching a presentation of MSPN. This has been NASMARB, and I'm Ricochet. Thanks for watching.